A key component of the modern world economy, the chemical industry delivers products and innovations to enhance everyday life. It is also an industry in transformation, where chemical executives and workers are delivering growth and industry-changing advancements while responding to pressures from investors, regulators, and public opinion. Discover how leading companies are approaching these challenges here on The Chemical Show. Join Victoria Meyer, president of Progressio Global and host of The Chemical Show, as she speaks with executives across the industry and learns how they are leading their companies to grow, transform, and push industry boundaries on all frontiers. Here's your host, Victoria Meyer.
Hi, this is Victoria Meyer. Welcome back to The Chemical Show. Today, I am speaking with John Foley, who is CEO of Verdant Specialty Solutions. John's going to explain who they are, and I'm not going to get into that piece because John is actually a repeat guest here on The Chemical Show. He was here on episode 8, right at the very beginning, when he was standing up a new company and I was standing up a new podcast. He was back on episode 49 and talking about the first year challenges and how they were building out the back end and more. Both of those episodes are going to be linked to the show notes and also on the website. So just go take a listen and you're going to get the full story. You'll get version 1, version 2, and now we're in version 3. So John, welcome to The Chemical Show.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Victoria. Great to be back.
Good to have you here. So let's just start. For those that may not know you, give us a brief introduction to you, John Foley, and also to Verdant Specialty Solutions.
Okay, well, thank you for that. I love talking about myself. I grew up in the Midwest on a farm. I joined the chemical industry via Monsanto Agricultural Products decades ago, and really found I'd made a great career choice in the industry because it's a great industry, lots of opportunities. After Monsanto, I did do 26 years with Solvay and its predecessor companies before jumping into the private equity space to really meet my passion to build and run middle market specialty chemical company businesses. So that brought me, after my first experience, really looking at what to do next, and that manifested itself in Verdant and the investment thesis behind Verdant. So
tell us a little bit about Verdant and what it is and where you're going.
The part about Verdant in the space is what we were looking to do was to create a company where I think there's a lot of opportunity and runway in the middle part of the chemical industry. We have great entrepreneurial founded and private companies that grow quick, they're nimble, really customer focused. But most of the industry is dominated by the global industry giants. So what we wanted to do with the private equity partners is create a brand and a culture. I guess the slogan we use operates to large companies' standards, but with that small company entrepreneurial spirit. In the first couple of years, it hasn't been easy, but really pleased with the progress. We're having fun and we're creating value.
Awesome. And you guys are primarily in the surfactants space. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that how you would categorize yourself, John?
Yeah, I think surfactants and surfactant-based solutions, we were formed in the first part of 2021 via 3 acquisitions. So we acquired the Odyssey business from Solvay, so a corporate carve-out of their amphoteric surfactants business with manufacturing in North America and Europe. And we quickly followed with a couple more entrepreneurial businesses, DeForest Enterprises and Bays Chemical. So over that first 5 or 6 months, we acquired 3 businesses and put them together with a variety of surfactant technologies. The amphoterics, and we also we have an energy services business via Bays with a lot of water treatment chemistry, corrosion inhibitors, and also one asset I'm really excited about is our specialty oxide plant in Palestine, Texas. So that formed it. Principally, the markets, home personal care, as with most surfactant companies, is our key market and a huge focus. Energy services is second. We have an industrial business, and we call it industrial because it like in many companies, it's everything else that doesn't fit in our major markets. So I really think about that as more emergent markets. We hope to grow more market-based businesses out of that group. And then we also do some level of toll manufacturing, not really strategic, but it helps use some of the capacity that we would otherwise not put to use. So in a nutshell, that's where we're at today.
Cool. So give us an update, John, on Verdant 2 years in, right? So I know, as we've talked previously, year one was standing up the company. Year two was fixing the company. I mean, tell me, how would you describe it? Where are you guys at this point?
Yeah, it's it's really been coming up on 2 years since we finished that third acquisition, and you capture it correctly. Inside the company, I talk about Verdant 1.0, version 1.0, and I think we really are just wrapping up 1.0 now. And there are a number of levers that we had to implement to get through that. Buying and integrating the three businesses. Standing up a back office, right, for in implementing an ERP system, our independent ERP system, be able to operate, not for the faint of heart. That was huge. We also underwent, on our large company standard, small company spirit, safety and compliance is at the core of our industry and our values. So we self-audited all of our sites. Right. I mean, we did due diligence when we bought them, and then we self-audited. And really, for a company of our size, it was a massive program, recruiting the people and uncovering every issue, safety, compliance, regulatory that we could, and making sure we're operating to Verdant standards. So that was huge. Internally focused, but as I consistently shared with the team and our private equity owners, creating real value for our stakeholders, because that comes first. We also refocused the commercial activities, and a lot of this was making sure we're focusing our assets and our people where we can create value. And it isn't enough. I'm not a volume-driven guy. Or professional. We don't have many of those here. Volume in and of itself doesn't solve any problem for me. So we need to make sure everything we do creates value for a customer who's willing to pay for it, right?
How do you identify that, John? I think that's an easy thing to say, but that's harder to do. But how do you identify what's really creating value for your customers?
Well, in Verdant 1.0, some of it is a reflection, the competitive intelligence, but the rubber hits the road on if you have competitive assets, right, and a fairly competitive cost structure, will somebody pay you the price you need to make a minimum accepted return? And so we tested that. And I've done this a number of times in my career. And I've always assumed at some point, when we refocus the portfolio, make sure we have the right price points to be sustainable, that I would end up with an empty plant, because people would say, no, something's wrong with you. You don't have the right cost structure. You don't have the right product. We're not going to pay for it. So all your volume's gone. But it's never the case, right? And so that reflection, and then the building the team with to get the data together, the right prices, and to implement what was one of the key early successes. So now the next phase in Verdant 2.0, it's going to be a little bit different game. But when you buy, I think my opinion, when you buy businesses, it's usually because something needs to be improved. I mean, sometimes it's a great business that just doesn't fit, but often there's something that was missing with the previous owners to realize its potential. So we did those four things: bottom, back office, self-audit, safety and compliance. We refocused. And the best part, because it has to be a virtuous circle, is we're over-delivering versus our investment plan, the investment case we bought them on, and really having a great year in 2023. And I attribute that to the work that the team's got done. And also we just have, I think we're in the right segments. and with the right customers and good support from our suppliers and stakeholders. So we've got a long ways to go, right? But the team is justifiably proud of what we've accomplished and looking forward to the next phase.
Yeah. So that's a great segue, John. So, I think what we're seeing across the industry is um, chemical markets are, I'm going to say flat, right? I think you could say declining, it's up, sell, whatever, but let's just maybe say flat. But also experiencing in many markets a prolonged period of destocking, right? Because inventories had gotten out of whack. If you want to, if I can say that, over the past year or two, a flattening supply demand curve. We've of course got economic pressures from what's going on in Europe with the European situation around gas supplies, et cetera, and the Russia-Ukraine war. We've got pressures from China. And, what started out as their approach to COVID and what's turned into an economy that's not growing and resolving the way it was supposed to. What are you hearing from your customers and seeing in your business as it relates to that?
Yeah, and I'm humble in this area, right? And so I'll share, what I'm seeing and feeling as opposed to what I know, because I'm humble about what I know. I think, two things. One, we're disappointed with our volume performance this year as well. We plan to grow volume approaching a double-digit number, and we're just slightly positive, right? So in our markets, we're not
It's
getting
better
where
than
it wants
negative.
to. Yeah, and that's right. But every business is different, facing different pieces. The other part on the market, and we're always trying to learn more and listen to your show and your comments on Q3 or Q2 results. I keenly listen to all that to see what we can learn. And there's a couple of things I take around. One, I believe there's some level of destocking. People are nervous about the future, so you want to reduce working capital, you want to reduce inventory, and in some cases, there's probably been some demand destruction, which helps too, right? But I read, and I would attribute it, if I could remember exactly who wrote it or who said it, but your customers are probably the worst place to go to understand what's happening with demand. Sometimes customers can be very polite about, our demand's they're not buying from you and our demand's way off. Doesn't always work, right?
And that's right. They could be buying from somebody else. They're doing something different. Yeah.
Yeah. When I see some of these, quarter to quarter declines, it cannot all be demand destruction or even inventory, is my opinion. So I think as an industry, we'll sort it out. Performance will start to vary. Markets will settle down, and what I am confident on is we can compete. We can get our fair share of the volume in any market, and over time we'll see what happened with market size and where it goes. So I wish I could be more insightful and
but do
learn,
you anticipate? I mean, I think one of the things that people are anticipating. And again, mixed comments depending on who you talk to and who you listen to. Some people are saying they're seeing some brightness in the rest of 23, and others are saying we're not going to see it till 24. And then the plastics guys, which is a whole different market, they're not expecting anything great until 2025. And of course, they're also the victims of their own investment profiles. So, that's part of it as well.
Well, yeah, and on just for Verdant and where my blinders are is in the markets we participate in, and I think I feel blessed that we're part of the home personal care world. I think all indications to me is people still bathe and take care of themselves every day, right? So they're consuming soaps and detergents and in personal care products, and I think it's just key there that we align with the right part of the value chain, the winning brands, and as consumers maybe buy different products as they maybe trade down or do things, and then also in the U.S. energy business, our energy services business is well positioned in production chemistry, and the energy prices holding up well. We've got a great team there. We want to bring in some new products, and the third leg though is there are companies that are growing, very very nicely, and that's about kind of Verdant 2.0, and we're really starting to get started in a big way to really pivot from what's still been a pretty heavy internal focus, right? Looking at our portfolio, how we position, building the company, to strongly pivoting to externally to really lean into a couple big themes that we see that we all see in the industry to
let's
get growth.
Talk about that. So you've referenced Verdant 1.0, which we've kind of maybe put behind us, or it's coming to a transition point. What is Verdant 2.0? What's on the horizon? What are you guys setting your sights on?
Yeah, no, and that is the language I use inside the company. Kind of 1.0. Okay, we did it. We succeeded. It's done. Now we need to do 2.0. And originally, when I used the 1.0, 2.0, we roughly doubled the value of the company or operating results in the first period. And I want to double it again, but it isn't even about the absolute numbers. I mean, there's a lot of growth I think that we can capture. So what do we have now? We have we have a back office. We have a strong leadership team. We're building out their teams, to really get equipped to grow. We've got the basic tools, inside. We've got well-placed surfactant specialty batch plants in North America and Europe that have capacity, and they're in good shape to run. So the two things then that really, and that I'm personally pivoting on is looking at what's moving market share, right? What's happening, and clearly, the whatever you call it, green, sustainability, ESG improvements, carbon footprint, the whole thing. There is just a lot of interest in products that solve those problems for companies. We see at customers. Now, where are the solutions? And I've got opinions on where they're going to come from and how you win.
Yeah, because that's what that was going to be my next question, John. So yeah, I'm going to get to that.
But what is happening is socially, government, consumers, everybody would prefer to have a product that's more sustainable by whatever criteria someone's using. But the transition, I think, is slower than many people would like to see. So that interest is there. We see at some of our larger customers in particular, personal objectives being written. Everybody gets a bonus, right? And you have your 2 or 3 objectives. Well, in many cases, those objectives are being written to find solutions to improve the sustainability profile of these companies, right?
Does that look like green chemistry, green and renewable products, John, or is it more broadly defined in terms of, if you think about life cycle analysis, energy reduction, carbon reduction, there's so many factors that we can be measuring sustainability on. How are you looking at this, and how are your customers looking at this?
Well, I guess what I would say is I think yes to all the above. I don't think there is a unified way of looking at it, and all the companies are positioned at a different place. So I think what we'll try and understand is in our target markets, what do people need to balance the equation which moves market share? And the equation that moves market share is deliver an incrementally sustainable benefit. And we have some things in our toolbox and what we want to acquire, but you've got to deliver that incrementally sustainable feature or claim, right? While not sacrificing functional performance or increasing cost and use. You got to do all three. And until you can do all three, you're not going to move market share. Right. And there are companies sometimes with older products and technology that are finding the ways to do that. Within our portfolio, I think what we bought, the amphoteric surfactant line is reasonably well positioned as far as on a relative basis, more sustainable, renewable, gentle, and also can serve as a co-surfactant in many formulations, enabling some other change, right? So we want to leverage that. And then the others, I think what we have to do, I think there's a great story around our Palestine asset to help the industry up and down the value chain.
Yeah. How so? So tell us. So so I know we've talked about that Palestine asset in the past, you and I personally. What's the plans? How does Palestine fit into Verdant 2.0?
Yeah, and I know I'm jumping around a bit. I'm just so excited, and we're forming our plans. But yeah, let's talk about Palestine. And what we acquired up there is a specialty scale, just to remind, specialty scale batch oxide plant, which was newly constructed over the last 5 to 7 years. So it was permitted, built, and started up. So I was very happy to acquire it. It was probably the key strategic driver for us on the Bayes acquisition, although we got a great energy services business as well. What we found up there was more of a startup plant. It was relatively new. It was in a geographic area that is, it's 2.5, 3 hours north of Houston. So you can't access the same workforce, the skilled workforce, to staff and build that plant. So what we did the first 2 years was really, ethylene oxide is serious chemistry, and we treat it with great respect. So that was one of the plants we targeted for the full safety and compliance review and upgrades. We spent a lot of capital up there to make sure the core processes are where we want them to be. The other key part is workforce and workforce development. Investing in the team of skilled operators to build that capability, and then the professionals to really start up the plant. So we've made progress on that and reshaping the portfolio. And what's next is we're about to get more aggressive in putting in the resources, including this week we named a new plant manager at that site, who is one of my most trusted plant managers, great, experienced in specialty batch chemical manufacturing, a great team leader and builder. And that is a foundational position which enables us to be a great member of the community and develop the workforce and the footprint. The other piece that we're doing is we're going to put in more business development resources, because what I want to do there is, what we want to do is, there's 30 odd plants outside the U.S. Gulf Coast, and I think a number of them and their customers need to find the right mechanism and partner to move more production to the U.S. Gulf Coast. So I can anticipate that we try and acquire. If there's parties that don't want their plant in the upper Midwest or West Coast or somewhere else, maybe it's time that they restructure, that they choose to restructure these great companies with great product lines, and we help them get that production in the U.S. Gulf Coast with the ESG benefit of reducing EO molecular tourism and all the costs associated with that. And really improve the long-term supply reliability of those great product lines. So I think we'll do that, and then we'll just straight on compete, in more niche specialty areas where they're high value, they're important components, but maybe they're not currently connected to a manufacturing footprint that in and of itself is sustainable. And I'm not denigrating any of these companies or the plants, but it's natural, right? There's been a big migration
there's an evolution.
to the Gulf Coast. Yeah. So we're going to help, and we're going to help ourselves as we do that.
Yeah.
And the most frustrating thing has been ramping up that capacity.
We'll be right back. At Ecovist, they're accelerating the transition to a sustainability-driven future. Their long history of innovation, expertise, and customer collaboration supports the development of proprietary catalysts and services across their two industry-leading businesses, Advanced Materials and Catalysts and Eco Services. Advanced Materials and Catalysts is a leader in proprietary and customized technologies for polymers, cleaner fuels, emissions control, and circularity. Eco Services is the largest North American recycler of spent sulfuric acid. EcoVist, your catalyst for positive change.
Scheme and the piece to get it. So yeah.
So it's
That makes
interesting
sense?
because totally. And what's interesting about that to me, John, is, one of the things I think about is, so Palestine is, as you say, a couple hours from Houston. So US Gulf Coast-ish. And when, I come from a background that when you're citing a new facility, it's location, location, location. It's access to feedstocks, it's access to customers, it's access to logistics. I know you guys bought into the Palestine plant, so this was not an investment that you made, but why that location? What's unique about that location, or what was the opportunity in that location, and how are you guys leveraging that?
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, we bought it, right? So it existed, but I think the attraction is it, and I'm originally from Nebraska, right? You're from Illinois. So Palestine, Texas, I can classify it as US Gulf Coast, but it's a few hours north of Houston, right? So, but it has, it's a great community, good values, good workforce, to build in and operate in. We believe in that, and that's important to be a good neighbor and be supported. I think they value us there, and we want to earn that over time. I think logistically, for specialty batch manufacturing, the freight rate to get up to Palestine from the major EO production points, might be, call it under 5 cents a pound. Some of the freight rates to get to outlying plants, we understand, is up to 30 cents a pound. So it's not on a pipe, but it's specialty batch manufacturing. And certainly we have a good competitive advantage with ease of access, and logistics. The third thing is, it's in a remote location. I mean, it is literally we just bought some land across the road that is a cattle pasture, right? So there's a good buffer, and those things are never permanent, right? Things always develop and where things go, but it's a remote location, and I think so a community, a location that's not terrible logistically. And we can build a workforce up there and win. Now, if I could do it, I'd have it next to, a few miles from an EO plant without any city around and all those things. But we can certainly work with that asset on a scale of the 30 odd batch plants in North America. I'm very happy we have this one with where it's located.
Well, and absolutely. And I think given that EO chemistry is under such tremendous pressure, really over the last decade, especially, having a facility that's outside of a major metropolitan area is critical, because it's just important in terms from a overall safety ESG perspective, and being good neighbors.
Yeah. But then the challenge, for us, and because our private equity partners are very supportive, and they would ask me over the last couple of years, John, we're not slowing you down in Palestine, are we? What can we do? Do you need capital? When are we going to see these things? But the first things, making sure we have safety and compliance, the operating culture, and then the second, team. With that, we do those things right, and then we can start to really accelerate. So that's what we're working on next.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about talent. So I know Verdant has had a bit of turnover, particularly at the leadership level. It seems like,
Yes.
I know you've just referenced your new plant manager, which is a critical role. I know you've had some senior commercial leadership. And I feel like sometimes this is typical for PE-backed firms, right? Where the timelines are short to deliver performance. But, what's your take on this, John? Because you've obviously been working to really put together the right team.
Yeah.
When you think about leadership, and just the leadership turnover, how's that affecting your team? And how are you approaching that?
No, that's a good question, and I think really maybe the key success factor, for us is team, and more specifically teamwork. And in my career, I've rarely been part of what meets my definition of a real team that supports each other, that has the feel for the whole business, and we're committed to each other and the business to make it happen. And so it's critical, and it has been, I think, as I look at talent here. There's a few things I can share. I wasn't really ready for this question, but it's a great one, I guess. But the first thing I would have done early on, maybe a couple of lessons that I took is one, we were formed via corporate carve out, and there was nobody outside of the plants and a few key commercial people, and some technical. So the back office and a lot of the functions, we had quantity to address and then competency. So the whole thing, and we buy a business and then you got to start running it. So a lot of pressure, but really not easy to form overnight via 3 acquisitions, put it together and improve it, right? So, and I think that even where we hired enormously talented, hardworking people, right? Because some of the people who came in and contributed, I deeply impressed with what they did and what they accomplished. And even today, I mean, there's nobody who came in who didn't leave it all on the field. But then it comes down to, is it a good fit for this environment, for this strategy, right? And can they help build and develop team? And probably the other part of joining at least our particular version of private equity and startup is you have to be able to both do and build at the same time.
And those are often 2 different skills.
They are, and both from a preference too, not just skills, but people don't want to do it, right? Because you've reached a level where you're pulling levers at a big company and you've got all these processes, all this data and great teams, great people. And then you come in here and it's more, especially initially, it's hand-to-hand combat, not with each other, but just trying to get that.
Just trying to put the business
not with
together.
Each other,
yeah.
Right. And then so if you come into that and a couple of things that can happen is one, you just do, right? All you do is you get work done every day, and you don't spend enough time on team, you're going to fail, right? We'll fail because you got to build process and team, or you're doomed, right? Because you can't get leverage. And then the other side, if you take too big of a step back and say, well, I'm going to build all the team and wait for all the good data, good processes, and then we'll be able to fix our commercial strategy. Well, that's not going to work either, right? So it's really, and what I found is, that's important. Everybody we've hired, I would say, I've been deeply impressed how smart they are, how hard they worked. That balancing that's been a trick. Also for me, I mean, why are we on Verdant 2.0 today, right? Because, going through that process of stepping up the company, I had to be a utility infielder, right? Sometimes I was a salesperson. Sometimes I was working with product management. Sometimes I was working on liquidity and cash flow or ERP. And now we've reached a maturity where the business has developed. We've got, and we are not perfect. We have many, many things to do, right? Including me. They don't even have a perfect CEO. I tell them all the time, right? But we're on a path where we've got a lot of good people and some momentum. But I think that to be just open, which I always am. I mean that's what I see. And some of the people who came in and aren't here, I still talk to them. I mean, I consider them part of my work family, and it doesn't mean they won't come back. Right. At some point when we have.
Yeah, I think it's a good reflection, John, as well. If you think about as the company has developed, it needs different skills. It needs different, perhaps, personalities and temperaments from a work perspective. And so there is this this development cycle, right? That requires not just different processes, but different people at different times. I've worked with some companies. In fact, I helped a startup that was moving from development. They were setting up the company, building the assets, and into commercialization, and recognize that is a huge inflection point, right? So these are dramatic inflection points at different companies. And I've worked with several companies along the way here that are moving from one phase to the next. And as you move from one phase to the next, you sometimes need different resources. The skills that you needed at the beginning are different than the skills that you need at the next phase. The culture of the business has to evolve. And that's really challenging because culture is tough. It's slow moving, but you have to make that move as you move into different phases and different steps of the company.
Yeah, and well said. And Victoria, why it's always dangerous to have a discussion with you is I forget you're recording everything, right? And I just share very openly.
I can always tune this up, John.
Okay. But one of the key challenges then, because fully aligned with what you just shared, and I think really critical, and then do it in a small company, right? Where like when it was at some of the larger companies, if we needed a plan manager. We had programs to develop these people over 10 or 15 years. You need a plant manager. You call up your friends in HR. Hey, I need a plant manager. They'll send 3 highly qualified people. You pick one and you go. Here, and why I like telling our story is because I need people to know the story in the industry. I need them to know how we work because the most really my preferred way is recruiting people we know or private connections. I mean, we've used a lot of recruiters. It's really difficult to build a company and a culture that way. People need to understand what we're doing. It's not for everybody and where they fit. And that's the most powerful recruiting tool for human capital, for partners, people to join our work family, and also for business owners, right? Who have a business, and then what do they do with it, too? And telling our story really enables them to understand, well, what we do, and we're not perfect, but, we bought these businesses, private equity. A lot of people were worried when private equity buys it. We have more employees than we started with, right? So it's not slash and burn. We're builders. We're here to put together this small company spirit, large company standards, and I think there's a lot we can do. So I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So you are, we've talked about this a couple of times. You're private equity backed, private equity owned, I guess. What's the view from the owners, right? So they, PE comes in with maybe a hope and a dream and a plan and objectives. Verdant is 2 years in. What's the view from the owners?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm, let me go on. I don't want to speak for them. But obviously I've gotten to know them pretty well, but let me give you a self-evaluation. I think they're very supportive, people and teams. So I've really enjoyed that. I think they're happy. Now, part of that is self-evaluation, right? Because they really count on their portfolio CEOs to build a team and deliver results. So they're there to support. So you might better ask them sometime how happy they are. But no, I think they're pleased. It was really a difficult carve out and startup. Right. And for a number of reasons, but we worked through those issues. I think the team really engaged. And then I tell you, we have a monthly board call. It's about an hour by schedule, but early in our 24-month history, they might've been 3 or 4 hours. They were much more difficult. Right. And now as things start to click, they become shorter and funner. So I think that's satisfying to see. We actually have a meeting later today with them, and then I think they're excited for what we can do. They are excited for what we can do, and I feel very well supported to do the next part, right? Because we're going to need people who continue to believe in it. And okay, we did Verdant 1.0, we created value, but really creating that next step.
Yeah. So
is
Verdant
what.
2.0, I know at times in the past we've talked about the potential to bring in another business as
Yeah.
appropriate at the appropriate time. And I know that you can't share any secrets or confidential things, but when you think about Verdant 2.0 from both your perspective, but also from your owner's perspective, is there still a timeline to sale? Is there a timeline to additional growth? Is there anything you can share around that?
Um, Yeah, I think generally, I mean, I don't think about when the company will be sold, and it's not a big part of, we're not trying to drive anything. I think as we succeed and we get noticed, there's people who want to see how to create value together, and as we look for those levers, so there can be discussions, and the future's hard to predict, but as far as what I'm working on every day is and increasingly is looking at what do we have in the portfolio, how do we leverage it, and how do we build team. We're still recruiting skilled professionals to come in to help us accelerate growth in particular. And I do think external acquisitions of technology, product lines, businesses, very much on the table. And what I'd look for primarily are pieces that strengthen our technology basket, particularly acquisitions or alliances that enable us to balance that equation I talked about, increase sustainability without compromise of functionality and cost and use. And then also for that geographic play at Palestine. I have no idea what we'll find, right? Those are the two most attractive targets for me. That if it happens, but I think that the part for me, M&A is tough, right? I mean, it's tough to find the right deals and do the right deals and then make them work. So, but yeah, we're looking. I believe we'll have strong support. Should we find the right opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had the opportunity to talk with Kevin Ittrey from Grace Matthews a month or two ago about just kind of about chemicals M&A and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think one of the pieces that stood out, one is, you don't know where the market's going. It's always more surprising than you think it's going to be. But two, it's that whole aspect of being ready and having your ducks in a row, so to speak, to be able to tell your story, identify the opportunities, and
Yeah.
bring that value in at the appropriate time.
Yeah, and I think for me, a couple parts of that is one, we had to create the team capacity, the organizational capacity to do more, because frankly, I mean, we've always had support to do more and interest, but inside the company, we didn't have the capacity, so we had to say no more. We cannot do any more until we get this. So that's coming to an end. And then the second thing, knowing what you want that adds value to what you have, right? Because it's not about just buying something. How's it fit? And then your ability to create something unique with it. I the first thing I always look is, well, how would we improve that business? If
That's the right
if there
answer.
isn't, if we can't do it, then it's not going to work. And the other side, I've seen some businesses where clearly, if they're put together, we create a lot of value. And those are fun because I don't even care who buys who. Really, in the end, then put them together. So you just capture that value and have it go. That really gets my creative and business juices going.
I think that's right. I think about these deals a bit like a Venn diagram, right? You're looking for the overlap, but you're also looking for the white space to be filled. And when there's enough white space that you can move into, there's value.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been a lot of fun. We still have a lot of work to do.
Good. Awesome. Well, great, John. So, I think we've talked a little bit about what's next, but what's next? What should we be looking for with you and Verdant over the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, good question. And we're shaping it up now, but I think you'll see us strengthen our organization. We will bring in some more people that we all know, because the chemical industry is a small family, for sure. But we're going to bring in more talent to help us accelerate and enable the external growth opportunities that we see so clearly. We're going to build more solution based capacity in our technical teams, to take the technologies we acquire through acquisition, alliance, or just organic growth to create those solutions. And I hope what we see, I expect, probably more than hope, I expect, we will emerge as a company that will be one of the winners in this sustainability transition. And I see levers that can enable us to start to win, and win by solving people's problems, right? For those products short term, and get us positioned for some of the breakthrough chemistries that might develop in the future. So I think Verdant has a long runway as long as we stick to what we're doing, that small company culture, those large company standards, and we move fast, right? To get moving, and a lot of opportunity. So I'm really excited. It's a great time to be in the chemical industry.
Absolutely. John, thanks for joining us today. This has been fun.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. And I know that you're going to be in attendance at the Chemical Summit coming up in October. Yeah. So for people that have questions about what you're up to and how you're tackling stuff with Verdant, they'll be able to meet you in real life, up close and personal, and have some conversations.
Yeah, no, thank you for organizing that. I know it's your inaugural summit, but that fully aligned with what I've read and how you're positioning it. I think that there is a need for us to get together, right? I mean, there's still work from home, and the conferences are coming back, but it's really it's a great industry. We have great people. I just love being even as an introvert, because I am slightly introverted. I like going to those events and really consider it critical. So yeah, absolutely. See you
I
there.
think it's going to be awesome. Well, thanks, John. Thanks for joining us today on The Chemical Show. And thanks everyone else for joining and listening. Keep listening, keep following, keep sharing, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Victoria. Bye-bye.
We've come to the end of today's podcast. We hope you enjoyed your time with us and want to learn more. Simply visit thechemicalshow.com for additional information and helpful resources. Join us again next time here on The Chemical Show with Victoria Meyer.